I had always prided myself on the bond of trust between Emily and me. We were one of those couples who had weathered the ups and downs of life with our heads held high, side by side. Or at least that's what I had thought. We were in our late 20s, our whole lives ahead of us, and I had never once questioned her integrity or the strength of our relationship. But then the small things started to pile up. At first it was subtle. Emily, my once open book, had begun guarding her phone with more care than usual. The way she would suddenly shift her position on the couch, sliding the device under a pillow when I entered the room, raised some questions in my mind. Or how she had abruptly closed her laptop with a guilty expression, her eyes darting away as if trying to avoid something more than just my gaze. I rationalized it away. Everyone needs their privacy, right? She was probably planning a birthday surprise or something sweet. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid, but that gnawing sensation wouldn't leave my gut. Something felt off. I dismissed it as any trusting spouse might until that one fateful night. Emily had gone to bed early, claiming to have one of her usual headaches, leaving me alone in the living room. Her laptop sat on the coffee table, innocuous and unassuming. I stared at it for a long time, trying to shake the temptation gnawing at the edges of my mind. I told myself, "You're not that guy." But the nagging questions wouldn't let me be. Why was she acting so strange? What could she be hiding? I stood up, pacing the living room like a trapped animal, my gaze flicking back and forth between the dark hallway that led to our bedroom and the cold, glowing rectangle on the table. Each step felt like a lifetime. I knew that once I opened that laptop, there was no going back. What if it was nothing? What if it was something? Would I want to know? But my hands had already moved on their own. The laptop clicked open with an unnerving sense of finality, the screen brightening as if it were inviting me into a world I wasn't supposed to see. As it lit up, my heart thudded in my chest, loud and unforgiving. And there it was. The browser was already open and the page that greeted me was unmistakable. OnlyFans. A sinking feeling took hold of my stomach as I stared at the profile in front of me. Her profile. My wife, my Emily. The username was one I had never seen before, but there was no mistaking the face staring back at me from the screen. I scrolled, the photos becoming more intimate with each flick of my finger, the captions flirty and confident in ways I had never seen from her. The woman in these pictures, the one sending videos to complete strangers for likes and money, felt like a stranger herself. My Emily, the woman who had shared my bed, who had vowed to spend the rest of her life with me, was sharing sides of herself with people I didn't even know existed, with strangers. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck as I continued scrolling. Each new post another betrayal, pictures, videos, comments. She was playing to an audience that wasn't me. The likes, the messages, the heart-eyed emojis, the crude compliments, they all blended into one loud, dissonant roar in my mind. Some of her fans, men and women alike, left suggestive messages, and worse, she was responding. She was engaging with them, sending personalized messages, bantering with flirtatious remarks that stabbed at the pit of my stomach. I had to remind myself to breathe. My eyes kept moving against my will, absorbing every sordid detail, but it was the messages that stopped me in my tracks. There in her inbox was a long string of conversations with someone whose username was burned into my mind before I even realized what I was reading. They weren't just paying customers, they were confidants, someone she had been sending private messages to for weeks that she had come home to me, kissed me, and held my hand, all while building this other life online. My hands grew cold, the disbelief transforming into a pulsating ache of anger, hurt, and confusion. What was she doing? How long had this been going on? And how had I missed this? Who was this person she had become? I slammed the laptop shut, as if doing so would erase the images from my mind, but they clung to me like a dark shadow. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet, like the foundation of my life had crumbled, and now I was left teetering on the edge of something I didn't understand. She was still my wife, but she was also someone else, someone I didn't know. I stood there in the quiet of the living room, my breathing heavy as the weight of what I had discovered settled deep in my chest. I didn't know what to do with the knowledge, with the betrayal. I wanted to scream, to break something, to wake her up and demand answers. But a part of me was afraid of what she may say, of what more there was to uncover. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, I forced myself to move. The floorboards creaked under my weight as I made my way to the bedroom. She was there, lying peacefully under the soft covers, her hair spread across the pillow, like nothing in the world was wrong. I stood at the doorway for a long moment, watching her, wondering how someone could look so innocent while keeping such a massive secret. My emotions were a mess, swirling like a hurricane in my chest. Love, anger, confusion, disbelief, but there was no turning back now. "Emily?" I whispered, my voice breaking against the silence. She didn't stir. I stepped closer, my hand trembling as I gently shook her shoulder. "Emily," I said again, louder this time. Her eyes fluttered open, confusion clouding her sleepy gaze as she looked up at me. "What's wrong?" she mumbled, her voice thick with drowsiness. I took a deep breath, the words catching in my throat as I tried to steady myself. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking on the last word, her brow furrowed, still half asleep. "Tell you what?" "About the OnlyFans," I said louder this time, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. The change in her expression was instant. Her eyes widened and panic washed over her features. She sat up quickly, pulling the blanket up around her, as if it could somehow protect her from the truth that was now laid bare between us. You looked at my laptop?" she asked, her voice small and defensive. I couldn't believe it. That was what she was worried about. I stared at her in disbelief, feeling a fresh wave of anger crash through me. "That's what you care about right now?" I snapped. "Emily, you've been living this secret life, sharing yourself with strangers, and you didn't think to tell me?" She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it, her face pale as she struggled to find the words. I didn't think it was a big deal," she whispered finally, her voice barely audible. "It's just a way to make some extra money." "Not a big deal?" I repeated. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're selling pictures, videos, yourself to strangers online, and you didn't think that maybe, just maybe, I should know about it?" Her eyes darted away, guilt evident in the way she clutched the blanket tighter. "It's not like that," she said quickly. It's separate. It doesn't change anything between us. It's just something I do for me." "For you?" I echoed, my heart pounding in my chest. The betrayal was so deep, so profound, I couldn't even think straight. "How long?" I asked, my voice low, trembling with the weight of the question. "How long have you been doing this?" She hesitated, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes as she looked away. 6 months, she finally admitted, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I didn't know how to tell you. 6 months. 6 months of lying, of pretending, of sneaking around my back while I had no idea. My mind reeled, trying to make sense of it all. But it felt like everything I thought I knew had been ripped apart, leaving only jagged, painful edges behind. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at her as the weight of her words pressed down on me like a suffocating blanket. 6 months. I didn't know how to feel, what to do. My life had changed in an instant, and I had no idea where to go from here. Without another word, I turned and I walked out of the room, unable to stand the sight of her any longer. As I reached the hallway, I could hear her soft sobs behind me, but I didn't turn back. The betrayal, the lies, the hurt, it was all too much. I needed space. Time to think, time to figure out what the hell I was going to do now that my world has come crashing down around me. And as I walked down the hallway, my heart heavy, and my mind spinning, I couldn't help but wonder if I would ever be able to trust her or anyone again. This man found out that his wife was cheating on him after she asked him for shocking sexual acts during sex. Check out this video to find out all the details.